What's up guys, how's it going? My name is Chapito and I'm one of the co-founders of Smart Society. This is going to be our second investing series video. I'm really glad to have you all here. I hope you enjoyed the first video. You know what we did there. We were looking for the next primates bump and we really focused on two important indicators. And those were the listed count and the mentions. So that was a golden combination that you want to be looking at finding new projects. Actually, at the end, we traded something that was purely based on the listed count decrease. It's a really important factor. If the listed count is decreasing, probably the floor price is going to go up soon as well. Well, that worked out. That was good. And this week, we're going to be looking at two different indicators. So let's get right into it. You see, I'm at Bandit Boys right now. And what we're going to be looking at today are two factors. So that's velocity and mentions. Yes, we've covered mentions last week already, but we were looking more at listed count and the combination of mentions and listed count. Today, we're going to be looking at the combination of mentions and velocity. So if we're looking here, we're seeing Bandit Boys. Obviously, I've done some research for making this video, and I saw this was a really nice project that could actually put an emphasis on what we're going to talk about today. So what you're seeing is, if you don't know the graph yet, I'm going to explain it to you. What you can see here, you have the blue line, which is the mention count, so the total mentions a project is getting on Twitter. You see the listed count, that's the orange line, and you can see the pink line, and that's the Magic Eden floor price. Lastly, we've got volume as well, and that's the gray bars at the bottom. So what we're seeing here, you see two pumps of mentions, and you can see here there's a pump in floor price and the listed count decrease. So this is really nice. What we want to be doing is we want to find this first pump and we want to trade on it. We're not going to find the second pump because, as you can see here, floor price moves up, and the mention count increases as well. But you know what's happening. If the floor price is increasing, a lot of people are going to talk about it. So it's obviously the mention count is going to increase. So we're not want to be looking at that. We want to look at this first pump. And why is that? Well, you see here the mentions have been really low, and all of a sudden there was a big increase. And you can see these other two lines, the listed count and the floor price, were stable. There was not really much happening. And what you can see a lot of times is when mention increase out of nowhere, you see that a lot of people see it on their timeline for like 24 hours, and they're like, it's multiple times that I've seen this right now. Maybe it's a good time to dive in. And then after 24 hours or something, you can see this huge spike. And as you can see here, a really nice example as well. You see that the list count goes first, and then immediately after the floor price increases as well. So that's what we want to be looking at, guys. And I'm going to tell you how you do this. And we're also going to look at a prime new example that might be a nice pump for the next coming days. We're here at the table and it's at the bottom of the screen. And you can see a lot of data here. And obviously, I can understand if you're just looking at this, you don't have a clue where to start. Well, last week, obviously, we focused on the listed count and the mentions. This week, we're going to focus on the velocity and we're going to focus on the mentions. So this is really nice about our tools, where you can actually see multiple indicators that are crucial to the floor price movement of a certain project. You just have to know how to combine them and how to look at them. So that's why we made this series. We want to give you more education on how to use these tools, how you can actually profit from the tools with trading. So what is velocity? Velocity is the total volume divided by the floor price. So it actually tells you how quick money is exchanging hands in a certain project. So if the velocity is 1,000, for example, and the floor price is 4, then you know there's been a volume of 40,000. Well, that's a lot of volume, obviously, and the velocity really matters because you can actually see how quickly floors can be broken through. So if you know, obviously, if you're trading and you see a floor of a certain project, you really want to invest in it because you see the mentions are increasing, you see the listed count is decreasing, and you're like, okay, this is a good buying point. But you actually see 20 NFTs at the 3.7 floor price. So you're like, okay, am I going to buy this and is it going to go up? Because it's going to take a long time for all those 20 NFTs to get sold at this price level. And a lot of times, if it doesn't get broken through a certain level, then the floor price decreases because there are obviously going to be more people offering their NFTs as well. So velocity actually tells you how quickly this barrier is going to be broken. If there's 20 NFTs on a certain price level, but the velocity is as high as here as the swings underground, then that's no problem. There's probably a lot of sales per minute, and it actually tells you that the floor price thickness isn't that much of a problem. Obviously, the other way around, if it's really a thick floor, a lot of 3.7s there, and the velocity is low as well, you can almost count on the floor price decrease. So that's really important. And as you can see in our AI signals, the Sphinx were called as well on 2.75 floor, and they actually made a nice profit of 63% on that as well. And that's because the AI model also looks at the velocity as a key indicator of success. So it's really important to look at it. And we're going to be looking at it at a combination of mentions, because we want to see if we have a high increase in mentions maybe somewhere, and if we can combine this with a high velocity. So what we're going to do is we're going to select mentions, and we're going to look at a nice big increase. So now we're looking at the most absolute values. There's a lot of things you can skip here, and that's, for example, Steppen. That's a big basketball project. It's always named a lot, but as you can see, velocity very low, so it's not really interesting. Magic Ticket, that's just Magic Eden's Twitter account, so they have a lot of mentions every day as well. And you can see here Sphinx Underground and Examen. Well, they've just minted, so there's not really a lot of data about them. You can see that by the NA. And that's not what we want to be looking at either, because we want to be looking at projects that maybe have been silent for a while and that are all of a sudden pumping very hard in mentions. That's the ones that we want to be looking at. So right then we're going to look at the whole list, and we want to see a nice absolute value, so probably like 4,000 plus, and we want to see a nice increase. So here, that's not really happening. This is the first one. It's the Samo NFT. As you can see here, 6,700 mentions, 101, 11% increase. And actually the floor price hasn't moved with it yet. But what did I tell you? We have to look at velocity. Velocity is only 13. That's really low. So that means there's probably only been like 13 sales, or maybe somewhere around that number the last 24 hours. And that's not what you want, because obviously a nice pump in mentions can help the velocity a lot, but it has to come from somewhere. Otherwise, it's probably not going to be a good one. So we're going to skip that one as well. And the next one we see is Other Chaos. Other Chaos, we've got a 6,400 mention count. We've got a 217% increase. And velocity is quite nice, 250. That's way more than the 13 here, for example. And we see the floor price has only gone down. So we're going to look at it and the graph. Yeah, as you can see here, we're gonna also can do the mentions here. You shouldn't look at this number because it's incorrect. But you can see here, the mentions have gone up from 1,980 to 7,000. So there's a big increase. And you can also look at it in the graph. And this is where it gets tricky sometimes, because you see maybe like this is a very big pump in mentions. And actually, this is very low. Probably this is because they've minted not quite long ago. The interest was really higher, so obviously these numbers are going to be crazy high. But these are actually very nice as well. Maybe if we put it in a 24-hour graph, you can see that mentions have gone up from 41 all the way to 655. And it's not just the one peak, so that's really important as well, because one peak can just be one tweet or whatever, but actually it has been stable here at nighttime, and now it's pumping again. And it's really important because you see the listed count and floor price hasn't moved with it yet. And as you can see here with Bandit Boys, that was the same thing. We saw an increase, a spike in Twitter mentions, but the other lines weren't moving with it yet. So that's really interesting. But there's one more thing you have to look at, and it's really important, and that's the new feature we've added. You can actually see their latest tweets of Other Chaos here. So you want to see at the tweets in the last 24 hours maybe if there's been some massive giveaway or some crazy news that maybe have inflated the numbers. So good news is good, but if there's been a giveaway of like some other crazy upcoming project, obviously the numbers are going to be inflated. So we want to be looking at it. And we see it's all quite normal data. Here we see a giveaway. What we're going to do, we're just going to click on it, and we see if it inflated the numbers a lot. So it's not their own account, so that's really important as well. And you can see there's been 224 retweets. So on a total of 7,000 mentions, that's not a big increase. So that doesn't matter. We're going to be looking at the rest as well. But all I can see is quite stable news. And that means that the Twitter mention increase actually is a very good factor. So that's actually really nice. And I don't say this is a buy signal right now because the market is down quite bad. If you know it, we see the market index here. It's 5% up from yesterday. So that's really positive. Daily volume, 50% increase as well. But we're at a really bad market right now, guys. So make sure you do your research very well. And these tools can help you with that. But yeah, like I said, be looking at that velocity and mention together, and that's a very nice combo. If you want to take it a notch further, then you can also look at the listed count. But a lot of times you've got to be looking at just 2, because if you have those 3 already, then probably the pump is already starting. So you want to be before that pump. So thank you guys again for listening and watching to this video. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you really get to know how to use these tools, because like I said, in the bear market, guys, it's really important to do your own research and only buy the things that you're certain of. Data just helps you with that part of do your own research. Obviously, your intuition can help. And maybe if you're not certain yet, go look at other KOs, see if you like their utility, see if you like their art, their community bonding, and see if you really think that this is a good buying point. So thank you again for watching. Next week we're going to be back with a new video as always. Put in the comments what you want to see in our next video, and we'll make sure to look at it. See you.